Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
Los Angeles.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, April 14th. LA Galaxy 1-1 draw, shorthanded at Dignity Health Sports Park on Saturday. Ring giveaway, which was a bit of a debacle. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the 1-1 draw, the Zonka red card, Diego Fagundes and his 400th appearance in Major League Soccer, youngest person to do that. Also 150 goal contributions, a big night for Diego Fagundes, and possibly was one of the best press conferences we've had in quite a while. That all being said, the LA Galaxy winless in 8 now. As they are dead last in the league, fighting with just 3 points, and now have an uphill battle to even get to the playoffs. In just a little bit, we're going to be joined by LA Galaxy General Manager Will Kuntz, but to help me until Will gets here, we have a wonderful gentleman who is back. I think he was covering hockey or NASCAR. Wait, no, the Grand Prix. I think there was lots of stuff in there. Welcome back to the show. It's Mr. Kevin the Panda Baxter. Kev, how you doing, bud?
What?
Yeah? Huh?
What?
What? You can't hear anything because you were at the races?
I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
I wasn't at Ringgate because at Diggity on Saturday because I was at the Long Beach Grand Prix. Pretty cool, but pretty loud. I wrote about tire strategy.
Tire?
I have no idea what I was talking about, but I tried. If you go on the LA Times website on Thursday, because my soccer column will be out, I will actually have a motor racing story. I'll have an LA Kings story.
Okay.
I'll have a soccer story.
Okay.
And a baseball story, profile of Wes Parker, who... You youngins don't know who Wes Parker is. Google him. You'll be amazed. But people my age, most people my age know and revere Wes Parker. Of course, most people my age are dead, so that's kind of damning with faint praise, I suppose. But
how were the races? Besides loud, I always usually had a pretty good time at the Long Beach Grand Prix. Is it still a place to be?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They got a lot of stuff there. The food is super expensive, man. I had a hamburger and fries, and it was $31.
You had a hamburger and fry, and it was $31.
I didn't know I had to bring a loan agent with me to order lunch. It was incredible. I actually the open wheel cars are pretty cool.
Right.
I love the NASCAR cars. I love the sound better.
Right.
One thing with the open wheel cars, they had nine passes or 9 lead changes among 6 drivers. Almost all of them involved pit stops. A guy would go into pits, the other guy would take over the lead. There was no passes on the track.
9 lead changes. That sounds like a little bit of the Masters there, if anybody was watching the Masters on Sunday. But hey,
yes,
I don't want to get too far down the road because we do have our special guest joining us now. So welcome back to the show, LA Galaxy General Manager, Mr.
He's here.
Will Kuntz. Yeah, he's here. He's on time. He's early because if you're early, what is it? If you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. Wait, I can never get that one right. Will, can you hear us?
Hey guys, how we doing? My college coach used to say, "There's no such thing as early. There's only on time and late."
There you go. Okay, so you were on time as expected. So we appreciate you stopping by. I know the travel schedule's been a little crazy, so thanks for stopping to take some time with us.
No, definitely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Let's start with the LA Galaxy off to their tied for their worst start in franchise history with 1997, just 3 points after 8 games, winless in 8 games, only have 1 point at home. How are you guys sort of digesting and trying to understand what has happened so far in the first 8 games? Oh, here we go. I got you back. Did you come back there?
I got you now. Sorry.
Okay. Did you catch that whole question, or you want me to do it?
No. Sorry. Fire it up again.
Okay, no problems. The LA Galaxy winless in 8, 1 point at home.
This part, the bad stuff I heard.
You remember that part. But how are you guys sort of assessing what has happened through the first, 8 games and everything that's going on? I have to imagine, and I think this is pretty safe to imagine, not the way that you guys wanted to start.
No, definitely. This hasn't been the start any of us envisioned, and we certainly as a group don't think it's been up to par, right? I think everybody in the locker room and on the staff would tell you that to a person. It's been tough. I mean, again, I don't want to sound defensive because our record is what it is. We've had some bad luck with injuries. Time wasn't on our side with the quick turnaround from MLS Cup to the start of preseason, and then having to have a lot of balls in the air with Dayon and trying to re-sign Maya, and you have to kind of do a lot of work in a very little amount of time. Again, nothing we didn't know about, but when you do that and you have a group that comes together later in the preseason, because that's kind of as quickly as you can get things moving. And then you have some injuries, and you have some big travel, and then you have some mistakes. I think we've had a bunch of just sort of unforced errors, and it's not just one person. It's been a few guys here and there, and they've really cost us, right? And you can't be a great team and make mistakes like that. And so, that's a reality, right? And nobody is happy with that. But having said that, now that we're starting to get healthy, we're getting our guys back on the field. And I think, people who were at the game on Saturday night in the second half, I mean, that's a team that played really hard. And of course we want to get 3 points at home always, but the way that group competed a man down, I think what we're seeing from Diego Fagundes, in his 400th game, really embracing the captain role as we get, more of our guys sort of healthy and settled. I think it's going to be, a different story in the next 9 games. And I know that might sound sort of Pollyannish or optimistic, but maybe I'm crazy, but I see a lot of talent when I look at our roster and a midfield that still needs time to settle together, right? I mean, Lucas came in, played a game against San Diego, and then broke his collarbone on the turf in Vancouver. And then, Marco played on that turf in Vancouver, then turned it around for a Tuesday, 3 days later in Cartago, right, which is not San Jose, Costa Rica, and then against St. Louis, and he got hurt. Joe was hurt to start the season. Nasi, did his groin early on. Mickey had a hamstring strain, and again, nobody's going to feel bad for us, but there's a lot of stuff that didn't go our way, and then when you compound it with unforced errors, it's tough. And so we all feel frustrated. We all believe in the group, but we also know that the only way to get us out of the hole we've dug is to push forward and turn things around. So a very, very long-winded answer to your question.
That's okay. Kevin, I know you had an answer or a question.
Yeah. Hey, Will, thanks for your time. Josh mentioned it equaled the franchise record for the poor start. I'm sure you're glad I brought that up again. But the Galaxy, the last team to win an MLS Cup and then start the next season winless through 8 games was a Galaxy team, 2002. They actually had 4 draws, so they had one more point. But the point is that team had a lot of good players. Kevin Hartman was on that team. Kobe Jones was on that team. Hercules Gomez, he played only 5 minutes. He was on that team. But one other guy I talked to yesterday, Alexi Lawless, was also on that team and played a lot of minutes. And he said the problem between 2002 and 2003, when they got off to that poor start, is he said one thing he learned from that, the lesson he learned was you've got to put the magic season, the championship season behind you. And so many teams want to carry over and act as if that team is the same team. And he said it's not. There's changes, there's injuries, there's a different schedule. Everything is different. And the sooner you can decide that this is a different team and play that way, the better off you're going to be. Do you think there's any kind of maybe a carryover where guys felt like, hey, we won last year, so we're going to win this year too?
No, not at all. I think, look, the reality is we knew this was going to be a very different season no matter what, because Ricky is going to be out the majority of the season. He's such a unique, for me, he's the most unique and sort of in an atypical way, dominant player we have in our league, and his ability to command a game is something that we knew we were going to have to adjust to. So just being down Ricky was something that we all knew was going to be a different look, right? And we anticipated that we're going to have to win ugly, right? And we're going to have to find and grind out goals and win some more games. 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. Ideally win a game in the first 8 games. I don't mean to be glib about it, but we knew it was going to be different there. And so I don't think anybody took it lightly. I think really what we were thinking is, how are we going to find a way to, reestablish our identity without Ricky, bring in, a new group in the midfield, right? Some new pieces to the team. And, our first choice midfield was probably, Edwin, Lucas, and then a rotation of Diego and Marco, right? We haven't seen that really much at all because, Joe was hurt, so Diego's been playing on the wing, and Marco's had some knee issues, and so he hasn't been around, and Lucas did his shoulder. So it's been, certainly a situation where we knew that it was going to have to be different. I think a lot of people were, and still are, invested in trying to come together and establish that identity.
When you look back over what happened in the winter, and granted, these were all like incredibly difficult choices, but when you look back and you see, probably, some of the thinness you have in the midfield, would you maybe think, when you look back, would you have maybe like to have the Mark Delgado trade back? Or you look at Dejan Joveljic has 5 goals by himself and you guys have 6 as a team. Would you was there a way that maybe you would rethink that deal, or was it pretty cut and dried? You had to do what you had to do, and that's just the way it played out?
No, look, and again, none of this, when it comes to league rules, is a surprise, right? Like when we sign a player, at the time of signing, we know what it looks like financially years out, but only in MLS are you moving, Mark Delgado and Dejan Joveljic, right? And those are guys who deservedly commanded bigger contracts, right? And we made the best deal. We took the best offer we got for both players, right? Happened to be that was with LAFC for Mark, and while we're happy for Mark and Nicky, it's always unfortunate to give your biggest rival a great player, but they also had the best offer in the market by far. And Marky gets a big boost to his salary, which again, in our cap situation, we weren't able to do. And when it comes to a guy like Gaston, it's you're heavy, and yet you have to make some hard changes, right? And if you're going to probably have to buy out one of those contracts, if you can, buy out Sean Davis instead of Gaston, that's money that you can use to fund Nascimento. And then with Dejan, it's like, look, Tigres came along and was willing to triple his salary, and then Kansas City was willing to go beyond that, right? And once that's on the table, what are we supposed to say? Like, hey, Dejan, you have to sort of stay on the senior maximum salary. It's difficult, right? These guys have earned it, and you want to balance doing what's best for the club, but being respectful to the player, right? And you never want to hold the player back from something he's deserved, especially when it's a chance to earn life-saving money. And it really, again, nobody's gonna feel bad for us, but man, it sucks, right? Because I think that there's a world in which, Dejan would want to be here, right? And we'd want to keep good, talented players without breaking the bank, right? And we're not there yet as a league, and so it's difficult. But I think when you weighed all the choices you had to make, it's not just choices in the short term, and they're probably always most difficult now because this is the period of time where the group needs to come together and learn each other and our system and how to come together. But in the long term, when you project into the future, you think, hey, this gives us also a really good foundation to continue to build off of. But it's obviously a very difficult track to trick.
Yeah, you can tell. Will, you mentioned some of the players you brought in, Sanabria, Winder, Zonka. Are you seeing them, sort of develop or fit in the way that you thought it was? Is it taking maybe a little bit longer, or were they perhaps thrust into a position where they had to play maybe even a little more than you guys thought they would right away?
I mean, I think it's been probably different in the case of all 3 guys. Again, when I go back to what we sort of envisioned the midfield looking like at the start of the year when we kind of plan out the roster build, right? It's Elijah's your 4th or 5th midfielder. He's got a ton of potential, but you're not you're not going into the season thinking that he's going to be starting in Champions League, and that's not to say that we don't believe in him, but just you want to make sure that you can bring young guys who are new to the league, right? Whether they're coming from a different country or the USL, give them time to adjust to the level, the speed, the travel. It's all very unique and very different. When it comes to Lucas, he gets a really unfortunate injury, right? Just breaks his collarbone. He comes into camp late, and then because of the negotiation, can't really start training until about the last week of preseason, right? So he was sort of catching up, and then gets hurt, which just sets his clock back, and that's a really valuable 6 weeks for a guy who's settling in. I think it's a fractured shoulder that's healing by itself, and so it's or collarbone that's healing by itself. So he's a tough dude, and he's still, I think, getting back to full health. And then Zonka, look, it's one of the things that you don't really worry about when you're signing a veteran player is kind of just being solid in the small details. And I think he would be the first to admit that there's been a few I think mistakes that and plays that just weren't up to par, and that I think has also been just sort of unexpected from a preparation standpoint, right? But each guy, I think, a little bit different in terms of what we were anticipating based on kind of how we envisioned the roster at the start of the season. But again, that's the reality of this game, and injuries are a real thing, and when you have a run of injuries, your depth gets tested, and it means that different people get different opportunities, right? And I think it's been great to see whether it's Harbour Miller or Isaiah Parente or Tucker Luckley step up. I mean, these guys have played in really big games, Champions League matches, which I think will help us as we now get to kind of just take a breath and focus on the season. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm being defensive of our guys, but I do believe in this group, and I think that there's a lot more to show.
Speaking of believing in somebody, Greg Vanney now in a contract year. Reports have you guys maybe at a stalemate. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But with no wins in 8, I know Greg Vanney won an MLS Cup, but you from the GM position, is Greg on the hot seat?
So I don't want to talk about an ongoing negotiation, but I'd say that we really want to have Greg back, and we're having good dialogue towards that event. And I will say that Greg, for me, doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. His record speaks for itself. Whether it's his track record or his playoff win record, this is a season where we have to adapt. To know Ricky, to know Gaston, to know Markey. We make decisions collaboratively, but that's a lot for any coach. To then get basically a brand new midfield, and then get them the PhD that they need for Greg's system of possession and sort of movement with the ball. It's a lot. It's a lot for one coach to do, and again, when you have a very limited amount of time to get guys going. So I don't put any of this at Greg's feet. If anything, this is on me and our front office team and the sort of constraints that we were under. And when you're trying to balance, like I said, the long-term health of the organization and short-term results, and that's always most chaotic when new pieces are coming together and settling in. And so we still haven't gotten to have even a training session with all our first choice guys without Ricky in the session, right? And that's how kind of snake bit we've been. So when you stack all that up, I don't think there's any coach in the world that would come in with this much sort of turnover and tough injury luck and look and some critical mistakes, right? So I don't put that on Greg any more than I put it on myself, right? And probably less. So it's and nobody is more frustrated about having no wins than Greg. I can promise you that. So
right.
It is not a hot seat, right? I mean, I think. What's the expectation, right? Knowing that we have the injuries we have, I think if you told me we're going down to Tigres after playing one of I thought our best games of the year here against them at home and that 0-0 draw, if you told me, look, you're going to give up 3 goals to Tigres in Monterrey, how do you think that's going to go for you? I would not have thought you'd leave that stadium, sort of obviously feeling frustrated that you didn't get the win, but proud about how the guys competed and and worked hard, right? And I know it's not a moral victory sport, but I think when you look at kind of 6 weeks ago, right, and the progression and the group and the fight, and it's not quite there yet, but you're starting to see signs of things kicking into gear.
Yeah, Will, one thing Greg said after the game this weekend was no excuses, which is, a hopeful sign. That's probably what you want your coach to say when the team's not winning. No excuses. We just need to do better. But and maybe we're looking too much at the numbers. That's kind of, I guess, what journalists do. But of the three teams that have gone winless, three defending champions that have gone winless through 6 games, we mentioned the Galaxy in 2003, Houston in 2008, and Columbus in 2009. All three of those teams made the playoffs. Columbus and Houston actually finished atop their conference table. And I'm wondering if, again, when we crunch those numbers, we see maybe a pattern. Do you guys look at that? There's 26 games to go and say, look, we don't have to do something that's never been done before. I mean, we can make the playoffs. That's happened. And when we make the playoffs and we have a healthy Ricky Puig back, we're going to be a different team. And the one reason I asked that is you talk about, the game and versus Tigres, and you talk about what happened when you played Costa Rican team at home and there as well. And you played really well in those games. And it just, you talked about how some of the momentum is building. It just doesn't seem as if that carries over to the next game. I mean, you had a really good game against Tigres, and then the next game, it probably wasn't as good. And I'm wondering if you see that too, if you see that there's a problem in some of this momentum and some of these good things you're doing carrying over to the next game.
I don't know if I totally agree with all of that, but I think a real part of it is just the miles that we've locked, right? And they're different competitions, and it's a different vibe when you walk into the locker room on the day of a game in CONCACAF, right? Because you're essentially playing in a quarterfinal, right? You're playing in a do or die knockout game. It's like it's a second round playoff game. Right. In MLS, you're playing it in April. And so and the guys really wanted to show out, Tigres is a big team, and it would have been, a big statement for us. Right. And so the guys were locked in and focused, but it takes a lot, right? Especially when you have to travel to, San Jose. And then, like I said, we played in Cartago. So we actually had to take a bus. Again, and I don't want this to sound like I'm making excuses for us, right? Because everybody who does CONCACAF has to do this. But you take a bus to a hotel near the stadium in Cartago where Cartagena's plays, because the, Herediano Stadium's under construction. And then, that's after going to Vancouver. Then you fly back, and then you go to Minnesota, and now, you go to Monterrey. And it's a lot to balance 2 competitions, and like I said, a new midfield, and again, guys getting hurt. We didn't even talk about Mauricio Cuevas, who I think can provide some speed on the wing. Greg's used him there late in games, and we haven't had that dynamic. And so, it's a lot to carry over from game to game, because the Champions League competitions aren't like the MLS competitions, right? And you're still logging serious miles in the midweek to do it. And again, I don't want to sound defensive, but that's just a reality.
Will, I have 2 more for you, and then we'll let you get out of here. We appreciate you spending the time with us as always. Number 1, Marco Reus. Are there any long-term concerns for you guys that he can make it back and be an integral part of this team down the stretch?
No, I would say long-term concerns. I think we need to look at how his knee is responding, right? And he put some heavy work in early in the season, and it's been barking. And so we're still getting to learn Marco as a player and physically, and who he is at this stage in his career. So we'll kind of monitor it, but we're really hoping we can get him feeling 100%. I think that's the most important thing, is getting him back to full health, and then finding the right timeline for that.
That makes some sense there. And then finally, do you feel like when you get this team sort of in a healthy position, and I always sort of preface it with it that there is no guarantee that any team is ever fully, healthy, right? And we always wait for that moment when everybody's back and, little things sort of kick back and forth. But if you get your fully healthy team, say minus Ricky later in the season, do you feel like this is a team that can compete in Major League Soccer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, compete in Major League Soccer, absolutely. Right. We still got a ton of talented guys in this team. We've got 2 really good DPs who are healthy and are game changers. And again, a group that has a lot of ability that's still kind of coming together. So, Well, I go back to Kevin's thing and say, look, we're being winless is not the plan, and we don't advise it. We think that there's a lot on this group that makes it competitive, right? And again, like it's MLS, and so there's always, I think, ways where you can be creative about improving your roster. And I know people get hung up on the zero GAM number, but there's always a way to carve out like a little bit of wiggle room. And so we'll always make sure that we have an ability to get better, in the summer if the right opportunity presents itself.
Very good. Very good. All right, Kevin, you good? We're all set. We'll go.
Yeah, almost. I just wanted to pick up on what you just said because that was my question. You're infamously locked into this with the salary cap, but you do have 3 goalkeepers. You can make trades now in MLS. You do have the summer transfer window coming up. It sounded like you just sort of hinted that there could be some moves coming, that there might be a way that you might be able to add somebody in the summer transfer window or maybe in a trade in the league.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple spots in the roster that you can look at and say it'd be good to, add some depth and other pieces. And it's a big world out there, and you never know what can happen, right? And you never know what's around the corner. So we're keeping all options open, and wait and see how things continue to develop.
Wonderful. Will, we appreciate the time. Kept you
Thanks,
longer
Will.
than we should have, but we really do appreciate you stopping by, and the door's always open.
No, I appreciate it, fellas. Good to hear from you. My mother-in-law says hi.
Tell her we said hi back. We got it.
Right.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. There he goes, Mr. Will Kuntz, LA Galaxy general manager here on Corner of the Galaxy.
Well, and it's his mother-in-law or mother who likes
Mother-in-law.
So
Yes.
he just got some serious mother-in-law points by coming on with us.
Yeah, I mean, that can't be a real situation. I actually talked to her. She does actually. I think she likes you more than she likes me, quite honestly. Which again,
Well, I can understand
nobody understands that. But no, it's great. We appreciate Will coming on. We appreciate Will coming on where the LA Galaxy are winless in 8. We appreciate Will coming on. Knowing they have the worst start to the thing. That's the hopefully the type of communication that we can continue doing. And they were Will was gung ho to come on tonight, and we're glad that we could have him. So as always, thank you to the LA Galaxy, Jamie, Kevin, Natalie for arranging that, making that all happen. We appreciate it. I think big news, big takeaways, if we're going to take away stuff from the Will Kuntz interview. One is vote of confidence in Greg Vanney. I think that's important because certainly there's a lot of rumblings out there that maybe Greg could be gone, and then who else would you bring in? And there's a big long talk you can have about Greg Vanney, contract extensions, everything else. And I think we hinted at it a little bit on Thursday, but you and I really haven't had a chance to discuss it. But I thought that was interesting there. On just going out and being able to be a little flexible, maybe in the summertime. I had heard and had some inklings that the LA Galaxy can still do things. Like you said, they have 4 goalkeepers, Kevin, by the way, not just 3, 4, because Brady Scott is the 4th. But what you're saying is that they have 3, and 3 is too many, and you could move one there. So I had heard something of that nature as well. So I think that's big. What were some of your takeaways with it?
Well, did we mention to him that the team is winless through 8 games?
I'm sure we mentioned it 6 or 7 times, unfortunately for him.
And it's not. This is not to beat up on Will. I mean, we praised Will when the team was going well, and I think it's fair to bring him on and say, what are the plans now? And Will's a stand-up guy, and he came in and took our shots, whatever they were. But I guess my takeaway was that he's thinking ahead to the summer, and there it sounds like there will be some moves. I mean, I think if you and I we speak pretty fluent Will Kuntz, and I think he pretty much showed his cards there that there's going to be some additions. And I had actually heard when you think about the 3 goalkeepers, 4 with Scott, that the idea of this goalie controversy they started the year with,
right,
that was planned. The idea was that they were going to move one of their 2 goalkeepers, Novak or John McCarthy, and JT was going to be the backup. And that was planned all along. They wanted to see which one they wanted to keep. I don't know if they've made that decision yet, but I fully expect one of the 2 goalkeepers will be going. Who knows what that'll bring back? And then it sounds like Will has some plans. I don't know where it's coming, where the money's coming from, or the roster spot, but he'd like to be active in the summer transfer window.
Yeah, through my talks with different people in and around the club, I have sort of come to understand that looking at 2026, they feel like they're in a really good shape in terms of salary cap budget. Everything's sort of moving in that direction, right? There's flexibility there. Granted, you don't know what 2026 is going to look like until you get there, but the idea is that by projecting out what the contracts look like, there's room in 2026 to do things. There are always ways, Kevin, to borrow from the future and give to the now, right? And whether that's in finance or in Major League Soccer, there are ways that you can do that. I mean, just a little bit of that was, some of the, I think there was a jam move that took place where the LA Galaxy, borrowed $100,000 of 2025 general allocation money for $125,000 in 2026 general. That's called leveraging the future, right? You're giving up $25,000 in jam in 2026. That way you can have what you need right now. So I think that's the flexibility that
and you can trade in MLS. Remember the Dejan Jovalic trade to Sporting Kansas City was the first in MLS history in which a player was sold to another club in the league, and there was a trade. So let's just say they do move one of the goalkeepers. Maybe they don't move him for a player. Maybe they move him for allocation money, and then they pick up someone in the summer transfer window, and that's where the money comes from. Yeah.
By the way, transfer window closing, I think on the 23rd of this month. Of that remember, we're still in that primary transfer window up front. Most everything else is closed, so you're not really seeing much go on. But we did see Jonathan Bond come back for Houston, and Jonathan Bond on the bench. Daniels. Well, he didn't move though. He's been there in Houston.
Oh, yes,
but yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, apparently Ben Olsen didn't get the memo, Kevin, that if they wanted to beat the LA Galaxy, he just needed to play one of the two former LA Galaxy players in there, and that would have done it and been enough. So, but again, big thanks to Will Kuntz for coming on. We appreciate it. I think we should dive a little bit into the Houston game. The LA Galaxy get a 1-1 draw. This is on top of a Zonka red card in the 28th minute. So the LA Galaxy play more than 60 minutes down a man. They're already losing 1-0 because Ponce had scored in the 14th minute, right? So you saw the LA Galaxy once again, and we've highlighted this many times, Kevin. Galaxy still have only led one time against Orlando in league play, and they lost that game, right? This is the first point the LA Galaxy have acquired at home this season.
And remember, Dignity Health Sports Park unbeaten, I think 21 games in all competition last season.
Yes.
This year they have 1 point.
They have 1 point. All right. And are we even? Is it 4 home games, 4 away games? I'd have to go check it and make sure. But it feels like they've been playing away the whole time whenever it comes to it. But so just a single point. That was it. I look at this game and I look at the starting lineup and I said, hey, the LA Galaxy season, I even tweeted this out. The LA Galaxy season starts today. Joseph Paintsel in, Christian Ramirez in, Gabriel Peck in. You're like, yes, that's a starting line. That's a starting front line that the Galaxy expected to have. That's what you wanted to see. Then you had Edwin Cerrillo in the midfield with Lucas Sanabria, with Diego Fagundes possibly playing the 10 in that. That, again, is something that you wanted to see, right? You have John Nelson, whether it's John Nelson or Julian Aude, either way, that's a starting left back, right? Miro Garces, a starting center back. You have Zonka in at center back, filling in for Maya Yoshida. And Maya and Zonka, I think, play really well together. I've been noticing that Zonka doesn't seem to play so well whenever he's not next to Maya. And then you had Miki Amane and John McCarthy. Now you look at those two guys, you look at all those, and for the most part, you're saying this is the starting lineup we expected to see whenever the LA Galaxy were ready to kick off in 2025. So this, to me, Kevin, was the starting lineup. The first time this year that you sort of had everything that you wanted on the field at one time. Now, we can argue about whether we change some of those things, whether Isaiah Parente needs to come in for Lucas Sanabria, as Lucas is starting to work his way back, right? That type of thing. But bottom line is that this was the lineup. So I was excited to see 7:30. It's a Saturday night. There's the replica ring giveaway, which went a little sideways, more than a little sideways in some ways. But this was what we expected to see from the LA Galaxy at the start of everything.
Well, I would argue that maybe it's center back. I would change one of those two center backs. I think maybe Yoshida needs to be on the field. If my starting 11 for the Galaxy this year, Yoshida needs to be in there. But he wasn't in there, and because he wasn't in there, they had to give the armband to someone else. I really like what Diego Fagundes has done recently. He's really stepped up. He talked a lot, and you'll talk about this later. He talked a lot in the post-game press conference about what it meant for him to be captain, and he took the team leader role. He said things like, hey, you know what? We just need to win. Mm-hmm. You can make all these excuses and talk about all these reasons and talk about salary cap, and we need to win. Our job is to win. We need to win. If we don't win, we don't deserve, to go to the playoffs. And I just really like the way Fagundes has looked around and said, Yoshida's hurt, and look at the guys on the field. I'm the leader. and I'm going to play the leader. And I think that's a good step. And I hope he, when the armband goes back to Yoshida, Diego's a different kind of leader. He's a little bit fiery. He can speak to the guys in Spanish and English, which is really important. Maya can't really do. Maya speaks a little Spanish, but
I think he speaks Spanish and Italian and German, and every other language, Japanese.
Yeah, he speaks I think 140 languages, something close to that. But I think Diego Fagundes probably gets his point across in Spanish a little bit better. Another thing is he's the veteran, the 400 games, in MLS. That gives him a little bit more of a cachet. Bit more gravitas to talk to some of these players. I like the fact that he's really emerging as a leader, and there can be two leaders. That's fine. Yep. Maya's a little bit more of a quiet guy. Diego's a little bit more fiery. I think you need that.
Yeah, you're burying the lead though, really. And Crazy gave us a $2 super chat to start this with. Is the Fagundes goal hits different because he was on the podcast? I mean, I'm not saying that's why why we got Will on the podcast. He saw that whenever Diego Fagundes
is Will going to score?
Will's going to score a goal now. Yes, that's on a set piece, which makes sense. With his height, he should be scoring off a set pieces.
Absolutely.
Really, I want to know if Will ever gets in there during training and wants to scrum around in the set piece setup, get inside the box, throw some bows, get up there. He's got the height advantage. He's a big guy. I think he could do some damage. So if the Galaxy
You talk about Will and Yoshida with his languages, and you remember, was it last year when Gabriel Peck won some kind of award and Will told him about it in Portuguese, and we kind of made a big deal about how he learned the Portuguese. He called me the other day from his car, and his kids were in the car, and he was speaking, I believe, to them in Portuguese. So Will's pretty good. He's got the Portuguese. When he tries to pretend like he studied to talk to Gabriel Peck, I bet you they have conversations all the time.
He very well could. But no, this is sort of that lineup, that setup. This is what I wanted to see. Then you get the red card. And listen, first you get the goal, by the way. The Galaxy, and Greg Vanney said it, we started horribly. And he made one note about how even on the kickoff, when we kicked it straight away, he goes, that was not we don't do that. That was one of the things he sort of pointed out. I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't heard the post games from Greg Vanney and Diego Fagundes, not to cut Edwin Cerrillo out of it, because you could go watch Edwin's too, but possibly two of the best post games in terms of enlightening, deep thought, analysis, all those things. I'll tell you right now, the Diego Fagundes press conference is possibly one of the best I've seen in maybe 5, 6, 7 years.
Is that just because you mentioned Corner of the Galaxy?
That is. It is very high on the list because of that. But no, listen to what he has to say. And I don't know. It's a tough place for me. When you look at big picture, Kevin, here, I can sit there and say, hey, great job. You guys are down 1-0. You lose a guy in the 30th minute. You play 60-plus minutes with down a man. You looked better whenever he left, right? And you come in and you're able to attack and do everything that you're able to do. You look like the team that was the aggressor. You look like the team that was going to score goals. You look like the team that was trying to win this. And I can say that. I think, again, go to Greg Vanney, and he talked about it afterwards, which I thought was interesting. He goes, you want to get the point. You want to be able to get the point. And he goes, and I needed to protect that point, because a point with a man down is a good point, right? And he recognized that. He goes, but looking out there and seeing the fight on the field from the guys, I was also trying to figure out a way to support them. How do I support them and allow them, the players, to go out and try to win this thing? Because I can see that they want to win that thing. I don't know why, but every once in a while you hear an answer that's sort of a paradigm shift in terms of what is happening. The players are playing on the field. The coach, you always think of coaches as being able to direct all these things. But sometimes it's the coach who's reacting to what the players are giving them. And maybe that's more of it, and it just never clicked in my mind. Maybe this was one of those things where, of course, Josh, this is every coach. But listening to Greg Vanney talk about that is, I could see their fight. I saw that they wanted to win. I needed to make sure we protect that point, because they weren't thinking about the point. They were thinking about, hey, we want to win this game. He goes, so I needed to do both things, basically. I needed to support them to give them the players and the formations and the ideas to be able to go try to win that game. And Greg Vanney said, he even thought that maybe they were unlucky not to get the second goal. Diego Fagundes said they were unlucky not to get the second goal. But I need to do something to support my guys out there. And I think there's this growing sort of undercurrent that people think that the players aren't listening to Greg Vanney, or Greg Vanney isn't having the effect of the players. Any player I talk to, anybody who's anywhere around that team, and you heard Will Kuntz talk about it today, there is zero doubt in their mind that Greg Vanney is the coach, that he's he has the ideas, that he is the guy that they want to play for. And I think it's far from a conclusion I think a lot of people have made that Greg Vanney isn't going to make it out of the end of this year. I just think that's an interesting thing to look at.
Well, one thing that Diego talked about too, and he's right, is the fight that the team showed, playing a man down, not quitting. And he talked about the effort. The guys are making an effort. And you see that. I mean, we've seen teams quit. I mean, 2017, I think they quit in a lot of games.
Yeah.
And I would argue in 2023, when all the things were going on with the fan boycott and stuff, I think the team, maybe subconsciously, but the team did quit. And you saw the shoulder slump. You saw them waiting for the other team to score. That hasn't happened this year. I think maybe the last 20 minutes of the Orlando game, maybe that I don't want to say they quit, but maybe the grit and the hustle wasn't as much there as it has been the rest of the season. This team is winless in 8 games, but it's not because the players aren't trying. I think the effort is there. There's been some bad breaks. There's been some other things. They don't use it as excuse, so we shouldn't use it. So I think the effort, for the most part, there have been times, again, the Orlando game, there have been times when maybe the effort wasn't there. But they're down 1-0 in the 14th minute. They're down 1-0 with a man down at the 28th minute, and they come back and get a point against a pretty good. Well, Houston's won just one game this year, so I don't want to say they're a pretty good team, but certainly a team that's played well here, in Los Angeles, and probably should have been able to ride that out and get the 3 points on the road, and they didn't. And the Galaxy came back and stole a point.
Here's my big problem, and again, big picture, and I was trying to sort of go this way, and like normal, I sidetracked myself in there. The point is great, Kevin. The Galaxy need wins. Let's do the math. All right, let's do the math. You and I were doing the math before we started. We're sort of like, hey, let's kick this around a little bit. Let's do it. The LA Galaxy have 26 games left. 26 times 3 is 78. So there's 78 total points available now for the LA Galaxy. And you can double check my math in the chat room and everything else, right?
Here's my calculator. I'm
okay.
checking.
Okay. So 26 times 3, 78. Okay. Yes. Good. The last year, the number 9 team had 45 points. Okay. So the LA Galaxy with 3 points need 42 more points. So they need to get 42 of the 78 points that are available out there. That is 53%. They need to capture 53% of the points in order to quote unquote be a playoff team. Now,
1.6 points per game. That's doable.
1.6 points per game. It is. But here's the problem. 26 games remaining. If you want to, just take your 42 points that the LA Galaxy need and divide those by 3. And you end up with 14. 14. The LA Galaxy need 14 wins, and obviously a combination of other things that could get there. But in order to get 42 points, that's 14 wins. The LA Galaxy through 8 games, I know Will Kuntz will tell you, has zero wins so far. The math that we're trying to do here is not difficult, hard math. Now, I believe in what Will has told. I said, I believe in what Greg Vanney. I believe what Diego Fagundes says. You can see this team is not bad. Eric, the Portuguese Hammer, and I were texting, and he's like, this isn't a bad team. I watch them, and they're not bad. He goes, they make stupid decisions. They shoot themselves in the foot. Very much, by the way, if we're going to throw this back to the Masters again, Rory McIlroy, okay? Was having this discussion again this morning. If you watched any of the Masters on Sunday, it was, as somebody rightfully said, it was the most exhausting golf match that they've ever watched in their entire. It was up, down, good shot, bad shot, everything. The LA Galaxy could be like Rory McIlroy. Now, at the end of the day, yes, Rory missed some putts. Yes, the LA Galaxy shoot themselves in the foot. Rory dumped them in the creek. The LA Galaxy put it in the bunker. You can see the similarities between those, but at the end of the day, who ended up in first place? Who had the green jacket? Who was that? It was Rory. I'm not saying the LA Galaxy can be champions this year, but I know for a fact that this team isn't as bad as we've seen so far, and I do believe the injuries. But still, you got to start winning, Kevin. It has to come.
Well, and Diego Fagundes said that. The questioning was, what's going on? Are you building momentum and all that? And he just shut that down and said, we need wins, period. We need to win games. And Alexi Lawless in our conversation Sunday made that point that the big point was forget last season. Last season's over. You got to move on. He also said he thinks the Galaxy, in talking so much about the salary rules and some of the other things, the fact that they don't have Mark Delgado or Gaston Brugman, and the fact they don't have Dejan Jovalic, all those players are gone because of the machinations they had to go through to get under the salary cap. Alexi Lawler said that's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Galaxy keep going back to that and say, well, we would be good if we had Dayon, but we can't have Dayon because of the rules.
Right.
He said you got to let that go. The rules are the rules. They're not going to change. Another thing he said is the same thing you just said. He said this Galaxy team has a lot of talent. They're certainly more talented than they're playing. And he did make the point, and I agree with this, that when they came back to make the playoffs, I think it was a 10-team league, and 8 teams made the playoffs. We know 19 teams of the 30 teams will make the playoffs this year, but it's a different league. And so when Columbus started, I think without a win in 7 games, and they came back and won the conference, and Houston, I think, was without a win in 6 games, and they came back to win the conference. The Galaxy are not going to win the conference. The league is way different. For one thing, you have to climb over twice as many teams as you had to climb over then. But the Galaxy are 8 points out of a playoff berth. So that's doable. They can make it. They can get into the playoffs. And then, if Ricky Puig is back healthy, they could do a little bit of damage. They're not going to win the conference. They're not going to compete for the Supporters' Shield. You can put those away right now.
Right. But
they have a chance of getting into the playoffs. And we know that this playoff tournament is like a second season. And the team that's hottest coming in, and again, I'm not trying to be like, the season's not over yet. There's still a chance, and not trying to be Pollyannish, but the team is better than 8 games without a win.
But they're also
underperforming.
As my good friend Sasha Klester would say, the standings tell you how good you are, right? Like it is, and I'm sure I screwed up his exact saying on that, but that was basically whenever I talked to him, whenever he was on the Galaxy, I remember saying that. It's like, oh, well, you guys, got unlucky. He's like, no, the standings tell you where you're supposed to be. This is the LA Galaxy right now. This is where the LA Galaxy are. 3 points, 15th place, at least they're not 13th, 15th place in the Western Conference. That's where the LA Galaxy, regardless of how good you and I think they are in 15th place. They are in 30th place in the Supporters' Shield.
Well, actually, I don't think they are. I think Montreal and is it Toronto? I think 2 teams in the East also are winless.
I think Toronto has more points than the LA Galaxy at this point.
But the Galaxy's goal differential is -9, and that was another point Diego Fagundes made. Is he goes, we made mistakes last year, but we scored so many goals, we just made up for it. And you and I have been making that point on the show. Last year they scored 69 goals. That's equaled their best in the modern era in MLS. So when they made a mistake and they gave up a goal, they scored 3 and they won 3-1 or 3-2.
Yeah.
They're not doing that this year. That's the problem. Is they're making you can argue they're playing. They're probably playing a little worse defensively, but not markedly. They could win with this defense if they scored some goals, and they're not scoring goals.
Montreal, by the way, is last with 2 points, and then Toronto has 4 points. Again, Toronto 1 point more than the LA Galaxy, who have 3 in that. Executive producer Herb, $20 super chat. Thank you, Herb. It was great seeing you, by the way. I think you say this in this. Hi, Josh. Hi, Kevin. It was good to see you at the game, Josh. Call me naive, but I believe this is the turnaround moment for the team. No more Zonka, please. Please hit the like button. By the way, I was able to get my ring. So executive producer Herb got his ring. No more Zonka. Well, here's the good news is he won't be playing in Austin because he got a red card. I really think that's an interesting foul. We have to talk about something that was really annoying for me. And I love to be a voice on this particular thing that was annoying to me. This was a remote broadcast, and I thought the remote broadcast for the most part was fine. Right, I got to catch a little bit of it. I saw it. There were outside of Joe Tutino, which, by the way, always a good reason to listen to Joe. He was actually at the stadium. Talked to him beforehand. He was there calling the game. You could watch it as the alternative audio, right? But there were no other play-by-play crews at Dignity Health Sports Park. I actually took a picture of the empty play-by-play booth. There was nothing there. There were no cameras, no chairs, no nothing. You and I, Kevin, probably could have rolled up in there and watched the game from there because there was nothing going on. Here, all the games were being produced, by the way, directed from Fort Lauderdale as well. So there was nobody in the truck on site there. Everything was happening from Florida. So all the cameras being fed by fiber and everything else get shot out to Fort Lauderdale where they're doing the production for this. They were there. I believe play-by-play was in Fort Lauderdale as well. All that stuff going on, all those things happening. That's sort of where it was. Here was my biggest problem, Kevin, which I did not anticipate this being the huge problem. The delay was double what it normally is, right? So you're watching on TV. Whenever we watch in the press box and we watch on TV and then you look down at the field, usually it's like 15 seconds, right? There's about a 15-second delay, which, by the way, is the perfect amount for whenever there's a foul or something, you can look up and you're going to see the play and you're going to see the foul and you're going to see the replays. And before they restart that ball, everything's going to be caught back. You're going to be able to catch back up and do everything. The delay was almost 30, 35 seconds. And I know that doesn't sound that much. And unless you're at the game and you're trying to do what we're trying to do, but the replays were so late. And again, it was in real time with the broadcast, but the replays were so late, Kevin, that I had to look away from live soccer in order to watch the replays every single time and catch the play and catch everything that happened. And I missed the replays. And I didn't even get to watch most of them because I was watching live soccer again. So I did not get to see the replay of Zonka's red card, which I firmly believe was probably miscalled. Not that it wasn't a foul. I actually think it was a foul in the penalty box. Yes, he grabs his shoulder. That contact is pretty light whenever you look at it. But he absolutely trips him in the box. If that happens, I think there's a reasonable request there in this one that it's a penalty kick, but it's a yellow card instead of a red card. Because the contact's almost incidental inside of the penalty box. Now, you're supposed to have to go for the ball, but certainly it wasn't like Zonka was trying to go to the player. If that gets called what I would consider correctly, then it's not a red card and Zonka goes away, but it is a penalty kick, and Houston's probably winning 2-0, but the Galaxy still have 11 guys. I don't know if there's a good or a bad side there, but because I wasn't able to watch the replays, I just saw the full replays this morning. Whenever I was checking into work, I figured, let me go see that play again one more time to check it out. So that is one of the bad things that I didn't like about the remote broadcast that probably affects nobody else, but I don't like remote broadcast. I don't think that's the way it should be done.
Well, and it's interesting too, because MLS started the season. I think the Galaxy were the first two, for sure, maybe the first three Sunday games. Remember, MLS went to, or Apple TV went to this Soccer Sunday thing where it was the, game of the week, and they were going to promote it, and it was all by itself, and everyone had to watch that. The Galaxy were the first 2 or 3 of those, and now all of a sudden they're 8 games in the season, and now they're the team that gets the remote broadcast and nobody there. And again, Joe Tatino, probably the best play-by-play announcer in MLS, sitting on his hands, and they don't even he's there.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, throw the guy a bone, let him do it.
Well, he does it, right? And it's the alternative audio, but it's not like the main audio. So anyway,
it comes on Sirius XM,
Well, no, I mean, it comes on Apple TV. You just have to choose which one it is. Lasso, $10 super chat. Evening, gents. Hard-earned point, huh? We'll take it. Things still looking a little gray, but soon the prodigal son Ricky will come out, right? That's what he's saying. Ricky's coming back. I mean, did you see Ricky? We noted this on Thursdays. See Ricky doing his rehab in a polo? Who rehabs in a polo shirt, Kevin?
Well, he's in Barcelona, so.
And people in Barcelona wear polo shirts to work out? I don't know.
Guess.
I'm gonna have to.
Well, I'm saying it myself all the time. Look, when Ricky comes back, they can make a playoff run because he'll be back and he'll be fresh and it changes the way the team plays, yada, yada, yada. You know what? They got 26 games to go. We don't know when Ricky's coming back. If they're going to sit there and say, we'll be, if the players are going to take, and I don't think they are, I think Diego Fagundes made that clear. But at some point, the team has to say, you know what? We don't have Ricky. We got to win games because Ricky is going to come back. And if we have 26 points, through 26 games, Ricky's not going to make a heck of a lot of difference. We need to win some games now because that will make us better when Ricky comes back. But if they're looking over their shoulder and saying, we can't do it because Ricky's not here, that's just not going to work. And Will kind of said that too. He said, Ricky, we lost Ricky, one of the most dynamic players in the league. You did, but he's not here. And so what are you going to do?
Yeah, I know. Popo Zhao, $5 super chat. I believe we could make the playoffs. It was great to meet you, Josh. Thanks for the pick. Pupusas on me next time. I get my pupusas for free. I don't know if I should say that, but I feel like everybody should know. By the way, I went to the pupusa line. Let's talk about this. We haven't talked about this, but we have talked about the rings and everything that went down. I got to the stadium at 5:32 in terms of walking up to the media gate. The media gate was supposed to open at 5:30. It did. In fact, I imagine it opened a couple minutes early because there were already people rolling through there. So 5:32, I hit there. At 5:30, they started letting everybody in the northwest entrance. I don't know if there was some season ticket member early entry, but at 5:30, all the gates opened. Everybody started pouring in. That northwest entrance, Kevin, was the craziest I've ever seen, and that counts for every MLS Cup I've ever been to. Any big game with Zlatan or anything else. There were so many people at that northwest entrance, which is, sort of the main entrance for the media, and then I know lots 12 and 13.
One of the box offices there.
Yeah, but one of the media box offices there, and sometimes they have some of the other box office windows open there as well. but it's for lots 12 and 13 and 10.
Closest to the tailgating.
Yep, all that. So it was madness. There were people lined up in the street, Kevin, all the way down both the entrances out into the street. There had to be 5,000 people right there. And the Galaxy were giving out rings to the first 10,000 people. And you know, you and I have sort of talked about it, but if you do the math on that, basically they have 4 main entrances, right, that you're going to sort of go in there. And so those rings are probably divided up somewhat evenly, and I haven't checked with the Galaxy, but somewhat evenly to each one. And then you divide them into doors after that. So, you know, there's different gates at each entrance as well. So there's maybe 6, 7 gates that are there. And so the rings are divided up by that. And the amount of people that were coming in there and getting rings and going through was craziness to me. I know they had some problems with some devices. The devices didn't work and they had to scan tickets, and whenever that didn't work, all of a sudden things started to shut down. I know the season ticket member lines ran out just as fast as the regular lines ran out, and there was no real benefit in terms of being a season ticket member. There's a bunch of things that didn't go right. I've put it this way, and at least from what I can understand, I've talked to the LA Galaxy about it. I've done, I think, you know, a lot. And this is the statement the LA Galaxy gave to me. We always aim to distribute giveaways with the fan experience and employee safety in mind. It's never easy, and we haven't found a perfect process. We especially always want to do right by our season ticket members and try to prioritize their experience by opening the season ticket member gate 15 minutes early and delivering rings to our field side seats. Tonight, we had to pull rings from 2 gates that went undistributed for the safety of our team members, who were shaken by an overwhelming fan response. In the weeks ahead, we will be prioritizing our season ticket members to do right by those who were disappointed by the giveaway at tonight's match. We thank our fans for the patience and for helping us to make future giveaways a safe and enjoyable experience as we continue to refine our distribution process. There's a couple things that always seem to play at this. One is that the security staff and the ticket staff and the people who work in the stadium, those are part-time people, right? And we've talked about this before. Those are not full-time jobs because Dignity Health Sports Park does not have a full array of every event, and they really want to stay specifically to soccer and the LA Galaxy. And so you don't have a bazillion concerts, and you don't have all the stuff that would necessitate sort of that a large full-time staff. So that way people really understand what they're doing all the time. Because it's part-time, they rotate through people. You see it whenever we go through security gates. It's like different people every single time, right? Otherwise, we would know people. I've been coming there to the stadium for 17 years. I would know a whole bunch. I do know a whole bunch of people who do that, but there's very few who are full-time. So that always hurts because regardless of what happens it seems like there's always new people doing things. The other thing is that whenever you look at the newness for me, Kevin, that always throws a wrench in things because when things don't work, there isn't that experience to sort of say, hey, when it doesn't work, we do this. And so we saw some devices go down and cause some problems, and then people were jumping lines and trying to get different rings and everything else that sort of happens to that. The other part of this is, and I know it's a cost thing, if you look at these rings, by the way, I believe the LA Galaxy actually partnered with Jostens on these rings. These are nice looking rings. They are metal. They are heavy. They are like, they have a real heft to them. They're big. So you can sort of see what they look like and sort of how they go. These are not cheap. I know that there was a cost factor for the LA Galaxy on this. Now, I don't know that fully absolves everybody from everything all the time, but if you know, Kevin, that there were going to be roughly 25,000 people at that stadium, and you were only giving out 10,000 rings, then you knew the majority of the people in the stadium would be upset because they didn't get a ring. Right. So already you're setting yourself up for probably not the best reception for that. But there is real cost associated with doing, like, somebody goes, just buy one for everybody who's going to be at the game. And it's like, there's probably a pretty considerable cost to these. If you figure that those rings cost, I'm going to guess $3 a piece. Right? That's $30,000 that they spent. I think they're more expensive.
And then add the tariffs in.
Everything else. I don't know where they were made. Somebody can tell me on the box. I would like to point out, you and I did not get rings. They did not distribute any to anybody who wasn't a fan. I didn't get one. Nobody in the press box got them. I know that there were fairly high up LA Galaxy employees that were looking for rings, and I don't know that they found them. So they really did sort of move some of those. And I know people got upset with them sort of removing rings via sheriff to take them out whenever things got a little heated. There were some definite bad actors in all of this as well. I hope they can figure out a way to do it better, because I think that season ticket members deserve to sort of have, this is a really special thing. And I understand the specialness of it. People started lining up at 4 p.m. I did see a lot of people who are complaining, saying, I got there at 5:45 and I didn't get a ring. I'm like, you were only an hour and 45 minutes late to like getting where you were supposed to be, right? Like that type of thing.
Well,
So
a couple of things. First of all, I know Elon Musk says we're not supposed to be empathetic, but I have empathy for the people who didn't get the rings. And I'll tell you, I remember going to a Marlins game with my son one time, and they had a bobblehead giveaway, and it was limited because no one ever went to Marlins games. So why buy 20,000 when only 800 people are showing up? Anyway, everybody wanted this bobblehead. They got a big crowd. The woman in front of me at going through the turnstile got the last one.
Okay.
And I saw it. I saw it go into her hand, and then the guys go, no more. And I totally understand the pain. I'm sure it's even worse, because of these rings are so nice. But I kind of really don't buy the Galaxy's message about, we didn't know that this was going to happen and we got to do better. We plan better. These rings are really nice. The Galaxy clearly have seen what's going on at Dodger Stadium when they have a Shohei Ohtani bobblehead and people line up to spend that, they stay overnight like it's a new Apple iPhone. So they knew they had to know, unless their heads were in the sand, they had to know there's going to be a big crowd. They definitely knew about the enthusiasm that fans and especially season ticket holders had for this. They knew that they were selling a lot of tickets for this game. So what's the solution? They can't get, as you said, they can't make 26,000 of these things. It's just too expensive. And looking back, maybe, they probably have close to 10,000 season ticket holders.
maybe more than
maybe
that.
a couple. So, but it's not 23,000.
No.
So maybe they just give them to the season ticket members. Maybe that's what you do. Maybe that's and they either go to the seat or they mail them to you, or as you were saying before we started the show, maybe you give somebody, like a ticket and they go and pick it up somewhere. So you don't have this crowd rush. But if you say, okay, they've already said we're going to try to accommodate season ticket members. They've already decided those people are going to be treated specially, as they should be. That's fine. If you already decided that, just give the rings to the season ticket members and do it in don't do it at the stadium where you have to call sheriffs in to make sure that no one steals the rings. There's probably better ways to do this, and I'm really not buying the fact the Galaxy were surprised on Saturday. I think they had to know this was coming.
Well, I certainly think that the way, people lined up, I don't know that was a surprise. I do think that just the device failures and stuff like that led to a waterfall of bad things. I was talking with some people who were on the fan council and stuff like that, and, sort of clued me in a little bit to most of the problems I think were at the northwest entrance, although I certainly saw some over on the northeast entrance and some stuff. So, again, the simple solution there is really to buy 15,000 or 20,000. Make it some way the majority of people get a ring, and I think you'll have less people complaining and all that stuff. I know there's a cost associated with that. I'm pretty sure Uncle Phil's good for it, and it's one of those special things. That being said, the LA Galaxy have to figure out how to make this right. It didn't leave a good taste in anybody's mouth. I wish they gave us rings, Kevin, so I could give them to people, because I feel bad that people didn't get rings.
Well, yeah, you gave me this one, I think, from 2000. Where'd it go? There it is, 2002. You gave me this one. My understanding is, for the most part, this has evolved over the years. The giveaways used to be a way to get people to the stadium back in the day.
That's a very important thing to sort of. I still think that the LA Galaxy prioritize getting people into the stadium, not necessarily season ticket members. Sometimes have to buy the giveaway. If they want the bobblehead, there's a Joseph Paintsel bobblehead that's going to come up. Mr. Bobblehead, pay attention. Make sure you're there for that game.
Well, again, my understanding is back in the day, and I'm talking about my time, not your time, the Dodgers didn't always draw 50,000. They, averaged, 15, 20,000. And so they would have a giveaway to get people to come to the games. Then when attendance went up and sponsors couldn't buy spots on the outfield wall or in the Galaxy program or whatever it was, they wanted to be affiliated with the team. So then they would sponsor the bobblehead. And you see a lot of times the bobblehead has a little thing on there that says Ralph's Supermarket or whatever. That's the company trying to sort of associate themselves with the team.
Right.
And then there's a third. So you have the bobbleheads that bring people in, or the giveaways, whatever they are, gloves or bobblehead, whatever. So you have the ones that get people in. Those are few and far between now, I think. Then you have the ones that where sponsors want to be associated with the team, so they do a giveaway. And then the third one is what the Galaxy were trying to do, which is you want to reward your loyal members. You want to celebrate a championship.
That's the sad thing.
You want to do something nice for the fans, and that's what the Galaxy were trying to do. And didn't go that way.
It didn't go that way. I know that there were good intentions for that. And somebody asked, $5 super chat from Adam. Guys, you probably went over this, but who's responsible for the chaos that happened on Saturday? This was unorganized. Again, I think we touched on just the fact that you have people in a position that aren't used to doing this stuff. And we see problems all the time because of sort of the part-time nature of the crews that man that. I mean, I've been going to the stadium for 17 years. Usually once or twice a year, whether it's parking or somewhere in the stadium, I get told I can't go somewhere I've been going for 17 years. Now, sometimes it's a change in policy, and that's always surprising. Most of the time, it's just people who don't know and don't know what's going on. And whenever you educate them, saying, "Hey, I've been coming here for 17 years. I think I know where I'm supposed to go," those types of things, it usually goes okay. But that's sort of the big thing. I just hope I hope they figure out a way to do it. In a perfect world, I want them to go make another run of like 10,000 rings and like put them out there. I think a voucher system would work better. I think they worked that. I think they did that for some season ticket member stuff where you get a voucher and then basically you go check in at the tennis stadium and it's one line. You can sort of go through and get that stuff. So I remember there were metal like flasks that they had at one point, and you couldn't get them until you left the stadium, right? So you was one of those. Also, Kevin, by the way, you point out that's the way they didn't want them thrown on the field, on the thing. I did make a joke in the Discord before this game because people were upset they weren't getting rings. I said, well, if you just wait, the Galaxy will get scored on in the 5th minute, and then people start throwing the rings, and then you'll probably get one that way. So
you were up by 9 minutes.
I was almost there, But it is, it's sad. Again. For all that we do on this podcast and all the interaction that we have with the fans and everything we do, I want you guys to be happy. I mean, I'm sad. Again, I'm sad. I wish the Galaxy would give me like 100 and I'd start giving them out to the Discord and people in the chat room and everything else. I would.
Would I get one?
No, definitely not. No, we're not. No, we're trying to help out.
Will Kuntz's mother-in-law. She gets one.
I don't think she got one either. I don't think she was there. So anyway, there's just it's just one. But we'll see what happens. Again, I give the Galaxy some time to sort of figure out how they're going to fix this, and let's take a look at it. The whole deal. So hopefully there's a better thing. By the way, big warning flag for the bobblehead giveaway now, right? It's like you've seen how it goes sideways. Make sure it's better. And I think knowing the conversations I had with people on that day about the rings and everything that went on, the Galaxy are certainly taking it seriously. I imagine they had a debrief even today about all that stuff and how they can change things and make things better. So I hope that they figure out how to do that. So, all right. That's the ring fiasco. Let's go back to our best friend who said that he would come on the podcast anytime now because he said, once it happened. I don't know. Diego's going to have to be a co-host or something next time because he came on and he scored a goal. He told us
he comes on when I'm not here.
Yes, he does. Yes.
He still hates me.
He doesn't, by the way. This is so funny. No, he likes you for some reason. I have no idea why. I tried to tell him not to, but he does. No, it was Diego Fagundes and what he was able to do. Again, the press conference is top 5 probably all time for me, and maybe in 1 or 2 whenever you think about it. Just go back and watch it. But 150 goal contributions in his 400th regular season appearance. He's the youngest player by like 3 years because the other one was Darlington Nagbe. Yeah, that was like 33 years old whenever he made his 400th. Realistically, he can pass Kevin Hartman this year, who is in 7th place, I think, 8th place or 7th place, and Diego Fagundes can get up above him because of that. But to watch that set piece goal, to watch him put that in, I asked him about it afterwards to tell us about the goal, and he said that he and Gabe sort of came over and they were sort of talking about what they wanted to do. And then a couple guys, I think it was Cerrillo, came in behind him and was like, just bend it around the wall. And Diego's like, yeah, just bend it around. Yeah, I'm just going to bend it around the wall. Like that type of thing. And he goes out there and he said as soon as it left his foot that he knew it was going in.
Well, here's the interesting thing. So he's on the show with you on Thursday. It scores his first goal of the season, 150th goal contribution on Saturday. I'm telling him right now, if Diego's listening, and I think he is at some point this week, come on a show that I'm on, and you're going to get a brace.
Well, the show that if he comes on with you,
with both of us, yeah. If he again came on a show when I'm not there because he hates me. So if he comes on a show when I'm there, I think he'll score 2 goals.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't think that's true. I think you'll just jinx him. As a matter of fact, I think that if he ever comes on the show again, that will ruin our entire goodwill that we've had going on here. So we'll see that. But Diego Fagundes makes the team of the week as well. I believe the second player this year to make team of the week. I believe Amiro Garces maybe made the bench on one of them, but the LA Galaxy haven't had a lot of team of the week performances this particular season. So well earned for Diego Fagundes. And now he puts him in a position for me, and I think Will talked about it. I know that we've talked to Greg about it. Puts him in that 10 position. It is time for Diego Fagundes to be in that 10 position. And as Will was talking about, because Joseph Paintsville got hurt, Diego played more time on the left wing than he would in the center. I am ready for the Diego Fagundes 10 show right now. And he talked about going to Austin. That was my favorite part. He talked about going to Austin, and he goes, how much I want to beat these guys, right?
Really wants to win. Let's talk about Diego Fagundes for a minute, because he's been here now, 2 seasons, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
He's done everything they've asked. He's played every position they've asked him to play. He's played on both wings. He's played in the middle. He's played as the center striker. He's played everywhere without complaint. I know he likes some positions more than other, and he's talked a little bit about how he feels comfortable, but that's not a complaint. It feels comfortable in one position more than another. He's done everything they wanted, and now he's getting a chance. I don't know. I haven't been in the locker room, but I don't know that he's embraced the leadership role to the point that he has now. Maybe he's just speaking out about it more, but right. I really like the way Diego is, the way he's coming together this season, both in seizing a role because there's an opening for that position, and taking the leadership on the field. They took that set piece. The other players could have taken that free kick. He took it, scored on it. And again, the press conference afterwards was good because he mentioned Corner of the Galaxy twice, but more importantly, he talked about what the team needs to do. And they picked up on the Greg Vanney thing. No excuses. He said it's the details. He said that he'd been talking about with players for a couple of weeks now. It's the details. They need to worry about the little stuff and not the big stuff. And then he said, look, we need to win. Talk about momentum, talk about injuries, talk about everything that's going on. That doesn't matter. We need to win. I really like where Diego Fagundes is, both as a leader and as a player on the field right now.
Yeah, I think you see that. Diego Fagundes, by the way, acquired in 2023, middle of the season in 2023. So with the Galaxy in 23, 24, and now 25.
Right. So it's not quite 2 full years because he came in the middle. He came in August. Yeah.
That is correct. So he had 11 games played in that 2023 season and 575 minutes. He already has 674 minutes. He had a total of 1,665 minutes last year regular season. So he's already at 675, 674 in 8 games played. So he is, and as always, I like to, Edwin Surreal called him old, which I found was, he didn't, he tried to get around it, but we all laughed and we're all like, hey, and we knew that Diego walked in and was behind Edwin Surreal, like back behind the thing whenever Edwin called him old. So we made sure to ask, I think Rob, Jalen asked, he goes, so Edwin called you old, right? The whole deal. And it's just fun to sort of see Diego Fagundes answer those questions and do that.
One of the things, that Will Kuntz is really good at, and he hit a home run with John McCarthy, is he knows what guys, he pays attention to the makeup of guys. He just doesn't look at what they do on the field and do they just then leave the stadium. He looks at the makeup of guys. And I have to believe that when he brought Fagundes in at the money that Fagundes is making, he looked at a guy that is useful on the field, certainly, and selfless, which is another great thing. Remember we had him on at Coachella. After his first training camp with the team
that's right,
last year, and right then you just knew this guy is playing for the team. He's not playing for himself. You remember he came over, his uniform was caked with grass and mud and everything, and that really left an impression with me. But I think when Will brought him over, especially at the money that he was making, I think Will looked at it and said, "There's value added in this guy. There's a lot he can do on the field, but there's a lot he can do off the field as a leader, a guy who's been around." And frankly, I'm kind of with Edwin Surreal. When I think of Diego Fagundes being older than 30, just like I think of Mark Delgado being older than 29. They've both been around for so long and have so much experience. And, that is value added too. Here's a guy that you think is 34 and 35 because he's been around so long. No, he's 5 years younger, but he still has all that experience.
Diego Fagundes on how the result can push the team forward going into Austin next week. At the end of the game, I said it. We need to play the way we did when we were down a man, but with 11 guys. We're good enough to play against anybody. There's not one team, and I keep saying there's not one team that has outplayed us. There's not. And I went back to every single game, and there's not one team. After they score, maybe we get outplayed, but it's not until we make our own mistakes. But this team, we need to be better at not making mistakes and making sure we finish our chances. We're getting clear chances. I think in the first half, when Joseph goes one-on-one, I think he gets touched. I tried to complain to the ref and stuff, but things aren't going our way right now. Let's be honest. But we just need to finish those, and the game turns around. Again, go listen to what Diego Fagundes says, because he says it better than I could say it and repeat for him. So thought that was interesting. The LA Galaxy, in terms of schedule and all the fun stuff that we have there, away to Austin at 10:45 a.m. Body clock game.
It's the Diego Fagundes Bowl.
It is. I swear. He says it. He says in the middle of something, and he goes, you know how much I want to beat those guys. He is hyped up. So Greg Vanney puts him in at the 10. Diego Fagundes might have a career game going against Austin. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. So that game,
tough body clock game, though, man.
I know.
That is with all the travel, and Will Kuntz mentioned it numerous times. All the travel they've done, and then they get this dumped on them. It's like, hey, no CCC game this week, you guys, but you got to play at 10:45 in the morning.
Oh man, there is.
It's like when they played AYSO. They're gonna have a team mother bring orange slices at halftime.
The electric. What was it? The electric something dragons. The electric. I can't remember though. I think the electric thunder dragons is my kid's team. No. The electric EDL. I can't remember what my kid's team.
You can't
name
even
is.
remember your kid's name.
I need to get it like tattooed on me. It's like the world's longest team name, and everybody laughs whenever we look at it. I was trying to find the LA Galaxy had their schedule here, and I know it's here. Here, I'm bringing it up right now as we go. But I wanted to see sort of what the travel schedule looked like. So the LA Galaxy off today, Galaxy training Tuesday, Wednesday. There will be a media session on Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yes, because the LA Galaxy will be traveling to Austin on the PM schedule on Thursday night. So they will be there Thursday night. They'll train all day Friday, and they will be there for Saturday. Your actual kickoff time, by the way, 10:55 a.m.
Well, you know why they're doing that. I don't know that for a fact, but I bet that's because of the body clock thing. Because normally, if that was a night game, they'd fly on Friday and play Saturday and come home. But I'm sure that Greg Vanney wants to give them a little bit of extra time to adjust to the change in the hours, and that's probably a really good strategy. I mean, that's their best hope.
12:50
to get there a day early.
Yeah, 12:55. Kickoff in Austin, right? So that's in Austin. It'll be 12:55, but that's 10:55 a.m. Pacific time.
And you say, well, the Galaxy train at 10:30 in the morning here, but that's not 10:45, and that's 12:30, Austin time. So, I'm sure they're going to train really early on Friday and try to get just that time, and everyone's going to go home and take a nap.
I think that the weather there's supposed to be about 81 degrees. We'll have it all set up for you on Thursday as we get you ready for that match. So we will we'll certainly watch that and see how it goes. But I mean, this is the big picture here is, and I can go through all these things. I mean, the LA Galaxy, 8 games played to date, 6 goals. They're on pace to score 25 goals right now, Kevin. It's just they're on pace to give up 64 goals. It has to turn around. It has to be better. Look at just the difference. Goals for 69 in 2024. Goals for right now predicted 25.5. Right now they're 13 goals worse in terms of defense and what the LA Galaxy have done. By the way, still not as bad as 2023 when they gave up 67 goals. The LA Galaxy currently only slotted to give up 64 goals.
I think they're on pace for 13 points for the season.
Yeah, I mean it's not good. It's not good. And then the longest winless streak per year. This is the longest winless streak Greg Vanney has had during his tenure, 8 games, where the Galaxy haven't had a win. So that's something that we continue to watch. Again, score first, allow first. Look at 7 games. There's been 8 games played, Kevin. And in those 8 games, 7 of those times, the LA Galaxy have allowed the first goal. In the one that they did score the first goal, of course, they lost that game, and that was the one against Orlando. So that's what I have. I agree with Greg Vanney. I agree with Diego Fagundes. I agree with Will Kuntz. This team is better than this. Now show it. We're beyond the time of, let's be cute about it and it's coming and just wait. Even executive producer Herb is like, I feel like this is the turnaround. I felt like there's been like 6 times that the LA Galaxy should have turned around. They had good games against Tigres, as you pointed out. Good games against Tigres. Where's the momentum that carries through that?
Yeah, it's like every time they turn a corner, they find themselves heading into oncoming traffic. It's not really turning the corner when you do that.
No, it's not. It's not. No, you just keep turning in circles, right? You're just round and round in the circles. You're not getting anywhere. And that's the LA Galaxy right now. So, again, with the healthy end, we should mention, it is expected, and we'll certainly try to get an update on this on Wednesday, but it is expected that Marco Royce, barring any setbacks, could be available for the Austin game. It is expected, fully barring any setbacks, that Mauricio Cuevas could be available for the Austin game. The LA Galaxy could be as healthy as they have been in this entire time. Only Maya Yoshida, who had a slightly worse scan than they anticipated and still out a couple weeks for his hamstring. And by the way, somebody said, no more Zonka. I think it was Herb who was saying, no more Zonka. Well, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. He got a red card. He ain't playing in Austin. But now the question is who comes in. And I think, Eric Zavaleta is going to be that guy. So there you go. You're going to get your wish. But Maya Yoshida's not back anytime soon. So it's going to be thin at center back. Maybe Edwin Cerrillo reprises his role, because that was certainly something that was talked about, was Cerrillo playing at center back and doing it. And I think Scott French asked Edwin if he ever played center back. He's like, no. He goes, but I knew that I had to do it, and so I did it. It was one of those. And Diego Fagundes playing all over the place. There were some real heroic games. I will say it. Diego disagreed with me, but who am I to listen to a professional athlete about the game that they play and have played their entire life? I always say that I think, Kevin, it's easier to play a man down. And the reason that I say that is that what has to be done. It's max effort. It's max effort on every single thing you do. There's no choice. There's no like, oh, somebody else has something covered. No, you just have to run yourself into the ground for however long you have. And I think it's a focusing sort of thing.
And Diego said that. He said at 80 minutes, his legs were just gone. They didn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
couldn't feel them.
He went 83 minutes in that and was just all over the place in it. So, let's sort of see how this LA Galaxy team. But the bottom line is, against Austin, you're looking at a team that the LA Galaxy want to get a result over. I mean, Austin sits in 6th place. They have 4 wins so far. Their home record's 2-1-1, right? So they've already lost a game at home at least. But eventually the LA Galaxy team has to figure out how to win a game. And I don't know. I would hope that they don't have to be perfect. I would hope they score enough goals that they're allowed to make a mistake, because I think that's the only way they're going to win a game right now. But I'm at least excited to see what's sort of going to happen this weekend, because I feel like, again, I'm kind of with Herb. It felt like a turning point. It felt like something was learned. It felt like they've gained ground. Now, can they turn that into 3 points? And I'm not sure. They've certainly left me questioning that. So, anything else you want to talk about, Kevin?
I've been thinking about that Long Beach Grand Prix. What a quintessential, I can't say that word either.
Yeah.
California experience. I covered traffic. I covered guys trying to drive fast in traffic.
Yeah, that is.
You just gone to the 405 and done that.
I am always amazed. And by the way, this is one of my, it is a quintessential Southern California
there you go. Thank you.
thing, because I remember my dad taking me whenever I was little, and he used to get free tickets from business and whatever we were doing. So we would go and be able to go watch that. And the only thing I ever remember, one, is that those cars go so fast. Like, that's one thing. It's just so much faster than you think it is. And 2 is, it's so much louder. It's like ridiculous. Like, I complain about, because I'm old like you, I complain about loud cars, like just like somebody driving by the house and it's blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, dude, like, we don't need to hear your car everywhere you're going. Yes, that's me being old. That is nothing compared to hearing those IndyCar series and what they're able to do. It's just so loud. So I always enjoy it. It's fun. So that's it.
It is just traffic, though.
It is just traffic.
At the end of the day, just traffic.
It's just people, and soccer's just a game where they kick the ball around. That's it.
That's true.
That's right. So we can simplify everything. All right. Big shout out once again to Mr. Will Kuntz for stopping by the show.
Thanks,
appreciate
Will.
it. Always appreciate that, and hopefully provide some insight.
Again, we weren't too on. We didn't do too much.
I think I never know. I think he's. I
thought
think he can handle it. He's a pretty smart guy, so I never worry about asking him the tough questions. But a big shout out to Will for coming on, the LA Galaxy for making it available, and as always, we appreciate that. All right, Mr. Kevin Baxter, anything else? You good? We're done.
I'm good. Let's get out there in the traffic.
That sounds good. All right, if you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on any of the social media, it's at kbaxter11. Head on over to latimes.com. Hockey, Grand Prix. What did you say? You have baseball. You have everything. Are you doing any Lakers? They're not letting you near that one, right? No. Oh,
I'm up.
Yeah, it's fine. I know. Kevin and the mute button. It's a battle made in history. If you're looking for me on any of the socials, it's at Galaxy Podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com. Head over to YouTube, like, subscribe, do all those fun things. All of our SoundCloud and Spotify and Apple iTunes is where you can find us. And please tell your friends. We really appreciate all the support we get for you. And hopefully we continue to bring you that coming up on Thursday, previewing that Austin game. All right, for Mr. Kevin, the Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman, and you're listening to Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast, cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.